Hair looks fine, Robert. It's fine.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's installment of Life Coaching Training here at coachinghangout.com. I am Sean Adams. I am your host for these conversations. And this week we do not have a specific topic. This week it is an open Q&A random discussion on whatever the heck people want to have a random discussion on. So you can either be at our event page or at coachinghangout.com and ask your questions. I'll be keeping an eye on both those pages just in case, so we can field any of those questions and move on from there. So welcome everybody to this week's installment. We've got a few folks that are already in the Hangout. I'm going to let them introduce themselves based on what I'm seeing below. There we go. I'm going to go in the order that people arrived. Hold on, I got to mute something here. Whoa, hold on. I don't even know where the noise is coming from. I have too many pages open.
And she's going to be asking questions that are showing up on the board.
Wow, that's really funny. I don't know where that noise is coming from. So I'm going to mute myself.
That allows you to come in to this.
And let Robert, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Common questions.
All right. My name is Robert McPhee. I am the author of the book Manifesting for Non-Gurus. I am a facilitator, which means I'm a speaker, coach, and consultant. And I am particularly thrilled this week because I'm leaving town tomorrow to go to my daughter's college graduation, of all things. I didn't think I was that old, but I actually am. And that's being followed by an opportunity to do a speaking presentation in front of a group of meeting planners. So I've got a big week ahead of me.
Awesome. Welcome and good luck with those. I realized I didn't have you blue boxed on that, so I apologize, Robert. But everybody, that's Robert McPhee. Robert waved at everybody. That was the voice you were hearing. I was too busy trying to figure out where the noises were coming from my computer. But I found it, so we're all good. It's very interesting. It says, I'm confused for a moment. Give me 1 second. The Hangout said that it was live, but then I had a button on the bottom that said post publicly that I was waiting on. So this is very strange, and I don't know what's going on today. But anyway, we're here, we're running, we're smooth. Thank you, Robert. We'll go over to Ninka. Go ahead and say hello to everybody.
Yeah, I hope. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me. I can see some green popping up. Hi, I'm Nienke van Bezooij from the Netherlands, joining from the other part of the world. I'm a speaker coach. Just want to show my audiobook dashboard for the professional speaker. It's very easy to do. If you know how to speak, develop your own material too. In a couple of weeks I will have my graduation of my youngest son. Okay, I'm on the same page, Robert.
So excellent, congrats, welcome, and it's an exciting time, this graduation time, so it's kind of fun to see. And Dr. Allen, why don't you say hello to everybody in the world?
Well, hello everyone, I'm Dr. Alan Weinstein. I have no children, nobody's graduating, and my dogs are not planning to go to college, which I'm always very, very happy about. Anyway, I am the creator of an application that everyone here should be using, and that is the VIP app, and it allows you to bring your live Hangouts, just like this one, to the iPhone, iPad, and desktop. And I will tell you that if you're reading some of the latest research, it turns out that most executives, people who run Fortune 500 companies, prefer to watch their video on a desktop, not a mobile app, and not an iPad, iPhone type of thing. And in addition to that, when you look at the top 500 CEOs in the Fortune 500, most of them do not even have a Twitter page. Some of the latest stats on that, I think that's pretty interesting. So there you go.
It is a pretty interesting stat that we always talk about it being a mobile world and moving towards mobile, but not everybody actually wants to do everything from their phone. Right before I hit broadcast on this Hangout, I actually took my phone and plugged it in outside, so it's outside the room, so I'm not distracted by it during this Hangout. So mobile has its purposes, but it is not the be-all, end-all approach that people want to get communication. That's good to hear. And Dr. Andy, why don't you say hello to everybody?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is having a wonderful Wednesday. Why is Robert holding up his phone? In every class, there's always one class comedian, right? Gotta always have one. Well, anyway, welcome everyone. Glad to be here. And I think if I remember correctly, last week it was going to be an open forum of questions. I have something very interesting that keeps coming up that I want some opinions on.
Well, you know what? I think this is that perfect segue into that section of it. So welcome as well, Dr. Andy. This is what we're doing. It's open Q&A. It's whatever folks want to talk about. It sounds like you've got a place for us to get started from, so go for it, Dr. Andy.
So one of the things that I don't know if it's happening more, just my consciousness is a little more in tune. But I'd like to know some opinions or thoughts or suggestions on when you're working with a client that has you work with staff members, and I'm not sure if everybody has that kind of dynamic that happens often, but I do. And when you find yourself with a staff member that is literally like oil and water with you, and no matter how hard you try to be professional, and no matter how hard you try to, just get beyond that, it feels like you're not being productive with this client in general because they have a particular staff member that's assigned to work with you and you guys just cannot get along.
So if I'm hearing your question is, how do you manage coaching somebody who isn't necessarily the person who hired you to do the coaching? And
when that's not going well, correct.
I think that's a great question. Before we answer your question, I had to jump over to Robert, who has the key to success: always stay connected, with the guy saying, before we begin, please turn off your cell phones. I think that's a nice little bit of irony there. Thank you, Robert, for that. But I think that's a really interesting question that you're asking, Dr. Andy, is that does happen sometimes where, because we've been talking a lot about pre-qualification and making sure that the person that you're coaching is the person you want to be coaching, and so you may have been chosen by the person you want to coach, but that may not be the person you're actually physically interacting with in coaching, or may not be the only person you're physically interacting in coaching. And I think, so that is a question. You may have done all your due diligence in finding the right client and everything, but now the person you're actually talking with is not that right client. How do you go about making that work? So I'm going to throw it out to the group and just see what people have to say. Any thoughts from the group on how you would approach it? I've got my own, but I always go first, and I want to share the wealth a little bit. So from the group, anybody have any thoughts or ideas?
I have a clarifying question. Are you ending up coaching someone different within the organization, or are you getting feedback from someone else in that person's life who's kind of clouding the coaching conversation?
No. It's usually where someone else is assigned certain things that need to be completed in our process that works for my client and can't get anywhere with that person. So now, obviously, I go through the initial channels of having a conversation with the person that has hired me. But I need a little more than that. I guess that's what I'm looking for today.
Okay.
So any thoughts or suggestions on what Dr. Andy can do with that person?
Well, it sounds kind of situational to me, but I've had situations like that in the past where I've actually created a group coaching call. I'm actually working with someone in network marketing right now who's having trouble getting her team to do some of the things that she's trying to get them to do, encourage them to do. And what we're doing is we're setting up, rather than me kind of working with her to try and get them to do stuff, we're bringing me into that conversation, which to me accomplishes two things. One is it gives them a different level of support and allows them also to hear the message from a different voice, which sometimes just lands differently. So, if that really is the block, I would say, unless there's some reason not to welcome that other person or persons into the coaching conversation, at least for 1 or 2 sessions, and make it kind of a group call versus an individual call.
So if I'm hearing you well, what you're saying, there you go, Dr. Robert, that's great, you're back again, is that especially if the person you're having trouble with is not the person that your primary coaching person, or is, instead of trying to work with the other person individually, you make it a 3-way conversation where it's the person who you are helping, the person on their team who is helping them, and you all working together to achieve the accomplishment instead of having to just deal with this one person on the team who clearly there's a conflict. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is, and I think ultimately your role is to support the person that you signed up to coach, and if that person who they are delegating to really is the block, then the best way you can support the person that you're there to coach is to do a little work with that person who's the block. Otherwise, all the work you're doing as a coach is like swimming upstream.
And there is always that danger that they may not even know that their employee, their staff member, is a block. They may, think this person's the greatest thing since sliced bread and not realizing that they actually are causing the roadblock instead of trying to solve the roadblock. So if they see that happening in a group interaction, that makes it a little easier. And it may actually make that person who might be the roadblock behave differently when they have to behave in front of their employee instead of just trying to pretend they're doing it independently. I think it's a good approach. Dr. Allen, I know you had something you want to say too, so go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say I like that idea, but it would not be one that I would use. In fact, the one that I would use would be having the call with the person that really hired you without that third person on the call that you have a conflict with. In other words, what I would set it up as this, as part of my coaching program, I like to meet with you one-on-one to tell you how I see the progress we've been making, me working with your employee or whoever this other person is, just you and I together, so I can go through a review of what's been covered. I can go through a review of my rating of how I feel that the coaching is going, and I can go through an assessment of how you see it on your end, so we make sure that you're getting your money's worth and that my coaching is the most effective for your business. And I would never have that other person on the call at this particular type of call. And the reason is that you don't really know how much influence that person has, and you also don't know what that person has already told the person that hired you about how the coaching call. So they could be totally sabotaging everything you're doing, and if you have the call with both that person and the person that actually hired you, you might find yourself in a situation where you're constantly having to defend your position because they, some people are, and we've all had these kind of employees. I like to throw them out the window if possible, but there's always an employee that comes into your office that has a unique skill. It's detrimental for your business, but here's the unique skill. They develop a relationship with this person against that person. Then they develop a relationship with that person against this person. So they are of the mindset, I'm going to divide and conquer this entire office. So they become very intimate with each other person individually and create total havoc inside your business and literally paralyze your business from the inside. And the other players who may not be sensitive to that kind of personality, they think that person's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they help you hate that other person more, or think that other person's not doing their equal share, or think that other person is doing things to sabotage you, and your business is literally totally out of control. And if you're having that sense with a person that you're working with that there's a challenge there, like that, most likely that is going on, and you don't want that person near the person that you need to speak to until you make them realize this is how you see what's going on, and this is what you think is the consequences for them. And then you could have that person invite in another session, that person to go through all the things that you went over step by step by step by step, where that person, and you see that now. There's a couple of shows on TV that my wife watches. There's a couple of 100 shows on TV I think my wife watches, but one of them is a restaurant calls in this third party who has hidden cameras all over the restaurant, and then literally sits down with the owner and shows them how all these people are sabotaging the business, which I would say, I would absolutely, without doubt, add one more piece to your coaching, and that is recording your coaching sessions with this third person so they get to see what that person's doing, because it might give you something that you could literally show that other person to the reality of what's really going on. Because then when you show that video to not only the person that's hired you, but that person gets to see themselves and how they're interacting, whatever it is. There's not much for them to say because the evidence is basically there.
So what I'm hearing from this is it's kind of the step before maybe what Robert was recommending is before you have all three together in one room, what you do is you bring in, you're having an issue with we're going to call them the roadblock person. You're having an issue with the roadblock person, so you have a individual coaching call with the person who hired you and say, this is where we said we wanted to get, this is the problem I'm experiencing and helping you get there, and what it's causing, how it's negatively affecting your business, and let them possibly start the initial conversation behind the scenes, and it might get cleaned up between them and the roadblock, and you never have to worry about it. If not, you can bring all three together and do kind of what Robert was talking about, where everybody processes it together, and if you get to that point where they're like, well, that's not really true. I mean, I record all my coaching hangouts. Any coaching I do is always recorded, and it's all kept private, but it's something I can review, they can review, but it does help to be able to go back, because if that person's like, oh, I don't believe that that person's behaving that way, you can actually take the video and say, here's a recording of our coaching call, and you can see what I'm talking about. The other side of it that I'm going to, from somebody who records their hangouts, their coaching sessions on a very regular basis, it helps to have somebody completely disconnected from that coaching realm watch that hangout where you think that person's being a roadblock and make sure it's that person and it's not some stuff that you've got that is causing the interaction to not be effective. Because it may be your own baggage that makes that person's comments or reactions or behaviors seem like a roadblock, but really what they're saying is accurate. You're just filtering it through some of your own stuff that's making it look like a roadblock. So it also helps to have that third party come in and say, hey, am I actually seeing this reaction as being a roadblock, or is this something that's my own, before you go and kind of tattle on the person to the person you're working with. Because I'm always like to be self-aware and be aware of the fact that sometimes it's my stuff and not other people's stuff that might be causing the problem. So I just like to throw that out there as well as just something to be aware of. So I think, does that help, Dr. Andy, with some approaches to what you're asking about?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, all three of you really gave me some great ideas and suggestions on, when something like this occurs again, a little more appropriate way to handle it, a more effective way to get through the process. So thank you.
And in the other side of it, and we've talked a lot about this, is whenever you're taking on any new coaching client, you always kind of set your ground rules and make sure everybody agrees to this is how the sessions are going. So that also means anybody from a team that's going to be doing coaching with you. Like if you have somebody who is going to be the person that's hired you to coach, but they want members of their team to also come in and assist at times, there's a place in the initial one where maybe that initial ground rule setting call isn't just with the primary coaching person, but it's with anybody who you may ever have on a coaching, so the ground rules are clear from the very beginning for anyone you might need to be interacting with. So that's another piece, is because then it allows you to be able to be a lot more upfront and conscious about calling them out on behavior that might go against what you and the coaching hiree agreed to, but they may not know that that agreement is in place. Dr. Allen, I saw your hand going up as well, so go ahead.
I want to add one more thing to this, not to beat this horse to death, and that is using evaluations after your coaching calls as a tool to either do one of two things: to make sure that you're both seeing the same thing, to make that person that you're having problems with think they have an actual input to make the sessions better so they feel better about themselves. And this is a tool that I've gone over in the past in, I think, a call that Dr. Randy and I did together, and that is at the end of your coaching call to ask them to rate you on a scale of 1 to 10 how the coaching call went for the day. So a 9 to 10 means that they had a great experience, it was a great coaching call, and then you would ask them to do that rating. If they gave you a 9 to 10, you would ask them, what about today's call made you give me a 9 or a 10? In other words, why was it such a great call? And I would record that because you could use that in the future. If they give you a 7 or 8, that means they're neutral. They can go either way. It could either step them up or they can go down, so they're feeling neutral about the call. So the follow-up question to that one would be, why is it that in today's coaching call you only gave me a neutral rating of 7 or 8? What could I do at this moment to make this a 9 or a 10 for you? And then hear what their input. And then if they give you a 6 or below, that means that they're leaving this call in a negative way, and they're leaving the call disliking the call, disliking where it went, maybe disliking you. And the follow-up question was, what was the challenge today that gave you such a negative feeling about our call? And before you hang up that phone, finding out what it was to them. And it may be something that you don't even realize that you do. You know, something that you do as habit that might be, let's say, you know, it's a male like myself, and let's say it's a female that I'm coaching for somebody else, and I don't even think about it. I do it as natural habit, and I might call them sweetie as an example of, oh, you know, that was great, you know, sweetie, we had a great call, I really enjoyed it, I can't believe, and they might be totally offended by the use of that one little word, which they're entitled to be, and that may be why they leave the call with a very negative outlook, and I want to get that cleared up before that call hangs up. Then I have a review process every time that I could sit down and say, hey, how could this person be telling you that the coaching call sucks? I do an evaluation at the end of coaching call. They're giving me 9s and 10s, 9s and 10s, 9s and 10s. So where's the disconnect here? That was my last piece on that dead horse.
Yeah, and there is a dynamic in that you may feel like the coaching call with this person who's the roadblock is actually not going really well, but they may feel like it's actually fantastic and they've moved forward and they're doing a fantastic job supporting their boss, and all of that could be very, very, very effective. So that it does help to know where they're coming from. They may be walking away saying, this was a great call, thanks. And you may be thinking, wow, that was the most miserable experience of my life, not realizing you did a really good job of coaching. You just don't feel very good about it because maybe they're just somebody who seems grumpy or unhappy or unpleasant, but they may have gotten exactly what they needed. You're just not aware of that. So that is a good piece as well. Nika, did you have something you wanted to share too? And we can't hear you, Nika. We've got no audio for you, Nika. So, all right, she's going to go figure out her audio. We did have 2 folks who did join us later, and I always like to give everybody on our Hangouts a chance to at least say hello, introduce themselves, and tell the world what they do. So, Quanchi, why don't you say hello to everybody first? If you could unmute yourself.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi everybody. Okay, it will be a little more difficult in English, but okay, I hope you all understand me.
Your English is great, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was in a session coach with Sandra Bravo at 6 and then at 8, so now I'm at 9 I'm here. Okay, I can do it. What I'm doing now on my project.
Yeah, what is it that you do? What is your business? What do you do so that people can learn about you?
Yes, well, in January I have asked my boss to be fired. I was the project co-founder of the first environment-friendly hotel chain in Italy, and well, as he doesn't like I participate to that kind of seminars like Arvecker, GBI with Alex Mandossian. I told him, okay, bye-bye. And now I am working on my own project for hotels, and I'm going to create a new hotel chain called Unconventional Hotels to respect not only the environment but also, and I think it's most important thing, people and animals. And about people, I mean people with different food necessities. So if they are vegan, vegetarian, celiac, and so on, or also if they have different religion too, because hotels don't have solution now for them, or if they have something, they don't communicate it. As people feel guilty to ask if they have something for them, okay, I want to create something, an unconventional community to let them hoteliers know they need something for them. This is what I'm working on.
Excellent. That's right. That was extremely clear. Your English is significantly better than my Spanish or Italian. So you did fantastic. Very well done. And so I know a little bit about what you do. We've had some email conversations about the unconventional hotel approach and the fact that it's not just, every hotel is cookie cutter for everybody, but there really are, some people need different things in order to be able, when they're traveling, there are needs that most hotels don't meet, and your hotels are designed to be able to meet those based on the needs of the people. So I think that's a great approach. So thanks for that, Conchi.
Thank you very much.
And then Nancy, I know you just came in as well. Why don't you go ahead and say hello to the world and introduce yourself as well?
Okay, hello, good evening everybody. I was today a very busy day. Anyway, I'm doing a project, a membership website about cooking. I want to teach people how to cook healthy. Alex said to me to start with the Spanish recipes. That's why I said, okay. He said Spanish cook video. I mean, okay, Spanish cook video. That's the website. Because at the beginning I started thinking about cookmember.com. It's already registered, but it's a good idea because when you teach us about the funnels, then I thought about the membership website and about the franchise. Then I thought, okay, Spanish cook video is a good idea because you can also create French cook video, Italian cook video, American cook video, and franchise the membership website I'm creating. And use Cook Member like the group where all the franchise from each country will come together. Said, okay, it's a good idea. Then I will teach people how to cook healthy way, also about free gluten, about vegan recipes, but I will start with Spanish recipes and traditional recipes. That's the beginning right now. The idea is to take all the video recipes, edit them in a very short time, and create a membership website with different levels. The free, cheap level with access only to the short edited video recipes, and another medium access to have access to the cooking academy using the Hangouts. And I have the idea to have another access to those people that refer my membership website and pay them 50% commission of the membership quote from the references that they give me to me. That's
so what I mean, you've got a pretty elaborate kind of business plan in place, but what it sounds like what you do is you teach people how to cook healthy kind of Spanish recipes, and then out of that is going to grow a whole different, more elaborate business plan. But right now what you're focusing in on is that teaching people to make healthy Spanish recipes. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes. At the moment, it's a start. Later, we'll go ahead with more.
Sure, and you got to start with where you're at, and this is a starting point. Where it grows into is different, and that's better. But I think that's a great point. So,
because I'm expert in using cooking appliances like Thermomix, like other that I cooking with them here. I'm very good on it. My experience is that many people has many different cooking appliances in their kitchens, but they don't know how to use them. And I know how to train those persons to monetize the cooking appliances they have. That's another point of view. Yeah. Because if
it sounds like you've got a pretty clear idea of where you're going, and I think that's great. I want to kind of get back to the conversation we're having about coaching specifically. I'd like to give everybody a minute or two, just so anybody who watches the video learns about the different people that are on the Hangout. But I want to bring it back to our topic of coaching.
Coaching. I'm 7 years coaching people how to cook, and that's what I'm learning. I have to practice to coach, doing the same, but with Hangout. Putting all customers in front of me and be with them alive and that's what I have to practice because I never been with the hangout alive with the people. I was thinking about the Spanish market, but I said, why? Let's go to the English market. I have to improve my English, I know, but I will do my best. That's
great. So we're going to bring it back to, I know that Ninka's back in and she has some stuff that she wanted to share to answer Dr. Randy's original question. So I'm going to bring it back into that realm of that. So Ninka, now that you're back in with sound, what was the bit you wanted to share with Dr. Randy?
Yeah. I've been in both what Robert's suggestion was with the triangle conversation with the other people and the one-to-ones as well. What happened to me in the triangle conversation, that the actual problem was not the secondary coachee, but the boss himself. He had quite a strong opinion about how this other one should be coached. So that was a good thing to bring on to the one-to-one because he hired me at the first to coach. And when there was some distraction between the coachee and myself, I made it very clear. I noticed something. I just brought it onto the table. What's going on? Do I only have the feeling, or is there from the other one also a feeling, and what causes it? Just to bring it clear and make it open onto the table to continue. And if it doesn't work, just go back to your first party and just say, well, for some reason it isn't working. And all the other thing of recording and evaluation is very valuable, but just make it clear and open on the table. To me, it was a great thing to do.
So it all comes back to
clarity,
effectively communicating,
like always.
Yeah, that's what that means, and so I think that's part of it. But I think it's a great question that you brought up, Dr. Randy, because it is one of those things. We are going to find ourselves in positions where either you're coaching somebody who isn't clear on what your expectations are, or even I'm going to expand off of what you said or your question, Dr. Randy, of that third person. But sometimes you're going to have that person who hired you for coaching, who for 2 months, 3 months might have been spot on, following what your agreements are, and then all of a sudden they start wanting something completely different than what it is that you have agreed that coaching resembles. And it is bringing it back, making sure, and this is why clarity at the beginning is so important, because you can keep coming back to that point. I'm a part of a men's group, and our men's group have these set agreements that we work by and live by. It's called the Mankind Project, and so there's general Mankind Project guidelines that we follow, and then there's also our iGroup specific. So this is generally how we're going to work and what our agreements are on confidentiality and a bunch of things. And then there's specific ones to our group of what our expectations are and things like that. When you have that, and it works in a group, we can have that where we can come up and say, you know what, I'm out of accountability because this is an agreement we've agreed to as a group, and I'm out of that. When you're clear about that, you can come back to that agreement, and that's why I think making sure anyone who might be in a coaching call is clear on that, because it does keep coming back to that point, which is why we've been emphasizing it for like the last month and a half in all the conversations we've had. So I think it's a great.
Blair Singer calls it Code of Honor. He has a very nice program, Code of Honor, about it, and it's all about setting the rules and sticking to it. And he has a nice phrase. When he starts a meeting, he will start with what I feel like saying. So all the nonverbal communication is clear, because what I feel like saying, oh, I don't like to be on this call anyway because I'm very tired, but I feel I have to do. But I just expect, well, so and so. Just it's not real for this time, but just what I feel like saying. I'm bringing it clear what is really behind for yourself, and all people do that, just for 10 seconds or so, just to be clear what's going on. It's really helpful in this set of Code of Honor.
Well, I think there's two pieces there. There is that aspect of the Code of Honor, and as a coach, you've got to be aware when you've violated the agreement. A lot of times I'll have a coaching session that's completely not what we agreed coaching's going to be, but I'm also clearly stating, please note, I'm happy to have this conversation with you today because I'm choosing to give you an exception to our agreement of how coaching is. This is not how all coaching sessions from here are going to be. We're agreeing that this one session, this one time, is an exception. Because if you go off and you allow a bunch of coaching sessions that don't match your agreement, then you've actually undermined the agreement as well, and it's harder to bring them back to that.
And then you're all over the place.
Exactly. And then the other side of it, there's a thing called, and I'm blanking on where it comes from, but it's a type of communication. It's nonviolent communication, where there's your story, and then there's your feelings about the story. And so my story is I'm tired, or my story is I don't want to be on this hangout because I feel tired. But you want to make sure you're communicating the difference between your story and how it makes you feel. Because if you and I'm not going to try to teach nonviolent communication on this hangout. I encourage everybody to do a little bit of research on it, because it really significantly changes your ability to communicate effectively if you can distinguish between what's actually your story and how it makes you feel. I have a story that you are tired on this hangout, and that makes me feel like coaching me is not a priority, and you'd rather do a bunch of other stuff that's fun at night and not be present for our coaching sessions. So that's the two ways of approaching it. My story is you're tired, and that makes me feel like I'm not important to you. You chose to whatever kept you up late at night to make it more important than being present and awake for our coaching call. That kind of thing is really, really effective in helping along those lines of communication, and it can also possibly clear up what you were asking about, Dr. Randy. If you can get that, if you can have a coaching call with that roadblock person where you're able to distinguish what the story is from how it's making you feel. I have a story that you're not living up to the agreements we have, and that makes me feel like we are not going to be able to work effectively because we're on different pages. Just stating that, because by that way, it's your fault we can't communicate. This is my understanding of what's happening, and this is how it's making me feel. Because the only thing you can do is own your feelings. Instead of putting those feelings on them and making it their fault, you're naming the story you have about them that's causing you to feel that way, and they may not recognize what they're doing is causing that effect on you. So that nonviolent communication technique can be really, really effective. And I know Dr. Robert, there you go again, buddy. Dr. Robert mentioned that concept of I think that'll be our topic for next week, is the difference between facts and story. I do that a lot in communication, that the data is, and it's just strictly facts. No feelings, no repercussions. This is the fact of exactly what happened. The story behind that is, and so if you can distinguish between somebody's facts and somebody's stories about the facts, that can actually really, really highly affect your coaching session. So next week's topic, thank you, Dr. Robert, is story versus facts.
Well, and just to clarify, there's all sorts of labels around those two terms. I mean, facts are facts, but then on the other side, you've got opinions, you've got assumptions, you've got judgments, you've got stories. There's so much going on, and I think one of the ways that we can be most valuable as coaches and help people get past the things that are getting in their way is by helping them identify things that might appear to be facts because they're experiencing them, but in fact they're full of judgments and opinions and stories. So I think it'd be a great topic.
Yeah, a lot of times if you ask somebody, hey, so what is your fact about this? And all they're going to give you is story. It's not actually a fact. What's your fact about, like...
Yeah, when you really start looking at it, there's so little that is truly fact.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that could work even with, I'm going to pick on you, Dr. Randy, just because you brought up the question, but it could work out really well. I could have actually, after you asked your question, I could say, so what's the facts of what happened with this person? And you could say, well, they're really crabby all the time. That's actually a judgment. That's not necessarily a fact. That's your interpretation of how they present themselves. But they may, the fact for them may be the fact that just like Nancy or just like Conchi was saying, this could be her 5th hangout in a row, or their 5th hour of coaching. They're not crabby, they're just tired. And you're inferring that that's crabby or that they don't like you, but you just might be at that bad point in their schedule. I know I'm not really good at doing coaching between 3 and 5 p.m. because that's when I'm really tired. That's my energetic lull. So if I have somebody who's doing a coaching call, they may say like, well, Sean's not really into this coaching call. I could totally be into it. I just don't have that energy level. So the fact to them might be Sean's not really caring about my coaching call, where the actual fact is Sean's tired. Their story is Sean being tired is I'm not into it. I'm totally into it. I just don't have that energy I have at noon because I'm having caffeine at the moment. So there's those aspects of it, which I think is great, and I think you're spot on, Robert. That's next week's topic, story versus facts. I think that's a good one. Dr. Allen, I saw you unmuted yourself. That's usually a sign you've got something you want to share. Go for it, buddy.
Well, no, I just wanted to say a lot of times, and I think you covered it, a lot of times, especially in certain instances, you see this a lot in political discussions, you see this a lot in religious discussions. People bring up things that they claim are facts that not only are not true, but they state it in a way that you can't even argue with it, because they're stating it as like, oh, well, the research says that, but there is no research, and they don't cite the research because they don't really have any research, and they'll get you the research, but you're basically stop dead in your tracks right there and then, because there's just no way to combat somebody who uses that strategy.
Yeah, 80% of all statistics are made up. Like it's
because
that
you want to believe them.
You can make anything. You can pretend anything is a fact, but really there's stories behind that. And there's a story behind that. There's my opinion of statisticians and stats and things like that are coloring me making that statement. You're right. Is this really a fact? Is it a story? All that kind of stuff. And so I think that's a great topic for next week. I think we don't need to delve into it too much here. I think we can definitely go into it more. I do want to throw out one more question or one more opportunity. Is there another question somebody has that maybe we can do a rapid fire response to when it comes to coaching? Dr. Randy, before we do that, are you comfortable? Did we answer your question? All right, we've answered our question. So anybody else have a question on coaching they'd like a quick rapid-fire answer session to? All right, seeing none, I'm going to throw out a question, which is what is the biggest... What's the one thing you absolutely, and this is for you, Dr. Allen, a brief one-sentence answer, I'm just picking on you, buddy, a brief one-sentence answer to the question of what is your absolute favorite thing about coaching? And I'm going to go starting with, I'm going to go right to left, so I'm picking on you, Robert, just in part because you're pretty good at answering these things, and I'm going to talk briefly for you to get ready with your answer. One sentence, briefly, what is the one thing that you love about either being a coach or getting coached? So Dr. Robert, that first to you. So you're up first. Go ahead, buddy.
I so knew you were going to pick on me first, too. I'll tell you what comes to mind for me. When I look at kind of why I do coaching, why I do the work that I do, one of the things that comes up really powerfully for me is about increasing awareness and opening people to new possibilities. And when I'm working with a client and I'm able to get them to go from a very fixed and very narrow point of view and see right in front of my face, I can see people open up to new possibilities and be able to get into action and create more of what they want as a result of having a broader perspective from some coaching. I think that's the piece that's just most engaging and exciting and energizing for me is about new possibilities.
So new possibilities and the evidence of growth that has occurred.
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks. Ninka, how about for you?
Well, one sentence, and I often agree with Robert. I would say growth. Just one word came up is growth. Growth of my coachee. And by coaching my own growth and have the new opportunities and the unexpected coming up.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Nancy, what's your one thing you love about either having been a coach for 7 years or coaching?
The coaching is something new for me because I started with Sandra and with you. And the good is to share with other people and mainly learn from you because it's like I'm a small village and nobody knows about my world. And the world is very wide and very open. And to hear what other persons are doing is really helping me to be more open. That's at the beginning is what I feel myself about being coached. It's like somebody cares about me.
Excellent. So, and I think that's a great benefit of coaching too, is just knowing that somebody cares. So I think that's awesome. Dr. Allen?
Well, I think for me, I think I have an ability to really excite the person that I'm coaching, and then we're both able to play off each other so that we both get very excited and leave that call with that excitement. I get high every time I have a call with someone in coaching. That is, to me, that's my drug.
Yeah, coaching can totally be an endorphin rush, especially when the stuff that like Nika and Robert were talking about, when that happens, you get that hit of endorphin and you get super excited. So I'm spot on. Dr. Randy, how about for you?
I think for me, it's really one word, not even a sentence. It's just the wow moments on both sides. You know, seeing somebody that you work with have, you know, that wow moment or that light bulb moment. And for me, you know, I just love when I go, wow. I usually go, you know, excuse my language, holy shit, I never thought of that. And that to me is kind of like my drive to keep coming back for more.
Yep, and I'm right there with you on that totally. Conchi, how about you? What's one thing that you love about either being coached or or coaching someone?
Well, I think you have to trust to that people and sort of empathy. You have to feel the person. This is a good thing for me. I want to feel the person, really care about me. Or as I used to, not to be coached because my ex-boss, he didn't know nothing about this kind of stuff. So I had to do always everything on my own, by myself. It was good also because I learned so much from me too. But I think everyone needs a coach, as I used to play also soccer. And it's very important, even though you are one of the biggest one in your what you do. And it's like a sort of guide. I see a coach like a guide. So you just need a little bit a guide to know, okay, I'm doing well, okay, maybe I can do better in this way, and okay, I have to organize better other things. Just a little help.
Yeah, it's that idea of knowing that you're not having to go it alone, that there is somebody out there that cares about you, that is desiring to see your success as much as you want your success. At least in the world of good coaching, that's how it should be, is that we all, as a coach, we should be as excited for their success and getting enthusiastic and really wanting to see them grow. And for me, I call it an aha moment, but it's that same concept, Dr. Randy. I love coaching for that moment where you see that light bulb go on, where somebody's like thinking about it, and all of a sudden like, and you know that like they got it, whatever. And it could be something simple. The place I see a ton of aha moments is language, where I just call somebody out on language they're using, and it finally clicks like, wow, I'm really negative, or I really don't believe I'm going to succeed based on everything I'm saying or how I talk, and learning that I have to make a shift about just my own way I approach things. Sometimes it's not that big, massive thing. It can be just something about a shift in language or a shift in what they hear. Like, I love to mirror back what people are saying for that reason. So there's lots of ways that coaching benefits folks. That was my question for the group. We are almost at the top of the hour, so now I'm going to go left to right. So, Conchi, you're going to be up first, so be prepared for this. And it's just 2 to 5 words of what you're taking from this hangout. What's the big learn or lesson that you've got from this hangout? So you're up first, Conchi.
For me, it's always important to listen, and I think it's always the most important thing for a coach, or also if you are if you're being coaching. So listen and the momentum.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Dr. Andy?
I think that what I learned here that was very, very helpful to me is that I really didn't have in my filtration process a system that addresses the, tiers of people that you may be helping. So I will now be incorporating that into my process and hopefully not having as many of these situations.
Excellent, and that's how we learn as coaches. Through experience, you find one thing that, oh wow, I haven't addressed that yet, so you find a way to address that. So I think that's great. Dr. Allen?
Yeah, what I've taken it away is that if you mention on this hangout the word hi, everyone thinks you're a degenerate.
So that's a perfect example of what we're going to be talking next week. Our story is about that word. So I think that's a great example. Thank you for that, Dr. Allen. Nancy, a couple quick words. What is your big takeaway from today?
That anyone needs to be coach for somebody else. I need coach from you. For sure, many people need something from me too. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, I know some of the greatest, biggest names. Jack Canfield is a great example. You might even be able to speak to this better than I can, Robert. But how many coaches does that man have? I mean, he's got a ton of coaches for different things, and he's considered one of the elite in what he does. So it's that idea that everybody should have coaches in different realms. You should, and it doesn't mean that you need to have 13 coaches, but everybody needs to be open. Somebody out there can help you get better at something you want to get better at. So you're right on. Thank you for that, Nancy. Nika, your big takeaway?
Clarity. Clarity first with everything, and I just want to say we are with a couple of all really regular ones, and I'm very happy to have the Spanish girls with us also today. And I started a year ago joining these hangouts exactly like you do, but you will get into it and get a lot out of it. We coach each other. It's not only learning what you can do from us, but we can learn from you too.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Italian. Well, not from America or well, wherever. I missed out on that part, Nancy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Cornetta.
I love our international hangout. It makes me very happy. Dr. Robert, what was your big takeaway from today?
Dr. Robert, that I'm a doctor. I just come here to be reminded that I'm a doctor. No, my big takeaway comes from Dr. Randy's question. And that is that there's actually a potential marketing opportunity for me by, when it's appropriate, involving other people in the coaching conversations that I'm having now. I am reminded of some situations, just like what she was describing, where I think I could really be helpful to my client by involving other people. And in doing that, they get to know me as a coach. So it's a potential marketing opportunity, too. Awesome.
I love that idea of expanding your coaching by bringing in more sub-people into already existing coaching things. That's always a great thing, especially if you're going to do them as group coaching, because then it's just extra money for the same hour you're going to spend anyway. I'm a big fan of that, so that's great. My big takeaway is just the fact that we all have I love these Q&A days because it's amazing to me the diverse perspectives and wisdom. I mean, we really came up with a clear multi-step approach to dealing with sub-clients who might be causing trouble, and it came from 3 different people. It didn't come from one person saying this is how it should be done. It's lots of people building it together into one cohesive concept that would work for lots of other folks. I think it's a great approach. I love it. Next week we are going to be talking of story versus facts, or I might even put facts and in parentheses data, because to me that's my way of distinguishing a fact from a story. Data is just data. It's what the actual thing is. But we'll talk about that all next week on the next Coaching Hangout. Thank you guys all for being here and joining me for these Hangouts. We'll see you guys next Wednesday, and stay out of trouble. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.